Okay, good. Hi guys, welcome to Makers Row Live. My name is Carl. I'm from the Makers Row marketing team, and today we are with Sue and Courtney from Stateless. And they are I don't know if you guys actually introduce yourselves, that'd be good. So, what's Stateless?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Suad and this is Courtney. We're from Stateless and I'm the creative director and founder, and Courtney is our head of product development and production. And Stateless is a design and development and production management team. We also have a branding development team that can help you with all the visual assets of your brand, including logos, style guides, your website, product shots, lookbooks, all the visual cool things that you need to go into your brand to set up successfully. And all of the designers on our team have extensive corporate backgrounds. So we've been in the industry for a really long time. I mean, combined years is kind of crazy. So what we've done is taken all of the best practices from all of our experiences and fine-tuned them and streamlined them down for small and mid-sized companies and also for startups. So, and this is Courtney.
Hi. My specialty is made in US. We can produce all over the world, but specifically I do product development and production for in New York, San Francisco, LA, and we have a different practice model for producing in the US. So yeah,
so
we
that's
can
what
talk
we
about
do.
that.
Yeah.
So you said you started in 2001, kind of with mostly design. So how do you make your way from there to working in product development and production?
That's a good question. Yes, I started way back in the day as a design studio manager for Oshkosh B'gosh, and I was going to fashion school at the same time, and then I ended up getting on the design team and taking my career from there. I've worked for corporations, American Eagle, Gap, JCPenney, just kind of across the board in a lot of different categories. And I left the corporate world 3 years ago to start this business just because we saw a real need and a hole in the market for people to design and develop their brand in a new way, in a modern way, in the United States and also overseas. And we've just kind of hit the ground running and keep working with some amazing people and building relationships with awesome factories, our awesome team, and we just kind of keep rolling from there.
And to complement that, actually, I started with mostly small businesses and in the U.S. So we can help scale based on her corporate knowledge and my understanding of all of the little details. So when you have a small business and you want to grow, it's a different practice than when you start as a corporate model. So yeah.
So we can, so a reminder to everybody, we are taking questions throughout. So whether on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or if you got a text message from us, you could text us back and we get those messages too. So anything about product development, production, what else? You guys kind of have a lot of expertise between you guys.
We do every part of the process,
Yeah.
basically. Like our team, we can handle any piece of the product life cycle, from creating your branding, designing the line with you and for you, creating all of your tech packs, specs, patterns, product development, fabric sourcing, trim sourcing. We can handle the entire process for you. We know how to do it. We've been doing it forever. And it's just a part of our value.
So it's basically like taking your ideas and making them into reality. And depending on each client's needs, what services we provide for you are tailored specifically to your project.
Yeah, totally.
So you can start off with a question from Savannah Martin via email. She asked, do you need to have sketches or drawings of your work to get samples made? Is it a good idea to hire a designer to draw your vision? I know what I envision, but I'm not a graphic designer.
Yes. It's a really good idea to sketch out your designs if you can, or to hire somebody to do that for you. So there is sort of like a tangible piece of clothing or artwork or whatever written down so that we can have something to work from. Because if you're trying to explain that to like myself or explain that to a factory, nobody's really going to understand it the way that you do. So I think it would be a good idea to hire someone like us or a designer to sketch it with you and for you, and so you're happy with it and you feel like your vision can come to life.
It's basically like if you have something in your mind, no one else is going to know about it without it being put on a piece of paper in some form. So that's why we're a good complement to each other, because Suad and her team, the design team, can do the drawings, and then we can simultaneously help you find the materials and consult on how it would be constructed in order to create it into an actual item.
So what are some tips for communicating your design effectively to you if they don't necessarily have the best artistic background?
Well, nowadays, with Pinterest, that's essentially a mood board. So you could take ideas, pictures from other brands or websites, just to kind of, it's not to say I want to make this exactly, but to give us an idea. And then from there, the designer can ask questions about the specific details that make your item something special or unique. And, even taking old vintage pieces or another, something that you're like, I love the way this fits. This is how I want it to fit, but I want it to have these additional details, or I want to change the fabric or whatever. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from scratch anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good way to start, is by pictures, and we can design it for you from the pictures, or we can also create a mood board for you and work it that way too. Yep.
And even if they have a piece from a store that they kind of want to emulate.
Samples are great too. If they have retail samples or an idea of that for fabric, if you've got fabric swatches, anything that's tangible.
And if you don't have the language, referencing something that's already present in a garment, like I like this pocket. You don't have to know that it's a welt pocket. You can just show us, I like this pocket. And we'll know I want it to be sewn like this. So that's always helpful.
Cool. So Senta, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So how do you grow beyond one product line with such a high cost per item? How do you grow beyond one product line with high cost per item using prints? I'm sorry. Okay.
Next question.
We're gonna get this question. So how do you grow beyond one product line when you have a high cost per item? So that makes wholesale difficult.
Okay.
Yes. Wholesale is a difficult business, I think, to run in the United States, and I'm going to let Courtney take that question because it's really expensive here to design, to develop, to source, to cut and sew. It's expensive, and you pay for every part of the process.
Yeah, and I think right now what we're faced with in the retail market is there are a number of direct-to-consumer brands, retailers, who have essentially cut out the middleman, and that's kind of I think a bad word for wholesale. So if you want to make something in the US, you're going to pay a premium for that, just given the cost of living here and the cost of labor. So from there, then you say this shirt that the market currently thinks should cost at most $150. That's what you can afford to sell it at wholesale if you wanted to wholesale. So then your retail is actually going to be, $325. So I think that's why you're seeing more and more direct-to-consumer brands, but it's not impossible to become a wholesaler with made-in-US product. It's just making sure that your price point that you want it to be at for retail is realistic. And there's ways to use fabrics and there's ways to get around the cost so that it still is both wholesalable and available to retail. And the cool thing is nowadays with websites, you can have your own e-commerce store. So if you can build a viable direct-to-consumer brand as well as a wholesale brand, when you sell on your site, you do actually make a really awesome margin.
Yeah. Cool. So next question is from Sarah via text. She asked, do you have any advice for someone that's developing a product in college?
In college, I think that's awesome to
Yeah.
to develop while you're in college. Is it a fashion college or is it? I think the process is the same whether or not you're a student or not a student.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be any different?
I mean, I think, there are some people who think they should go and work at a few companies before they start their own line, and you see that a lot. There's a Business of Fashion article that actually talks about why it's so vital to go into the work field before you start your own line. But I also think that if you believe in yourself and you believe in the product that you're creating, there's no harm in at least trying, because at worst you spend some money and you get a really invaluable experience.
You're going to learn for sure. I mean, it's just going to be trial and error.
Yeah.
That then if you do want to go out and get your experience and then get your job, and you'll be that much more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
For it.
It's worth the gamble, because if it does come out well and you create a viable business, then you kind of jumped over that step.
So then you have your business when you graduate.
Yeah.
Which
then
is
you're
really
really
cool.
cool.
Like, you're ahead of all your friends because you have a job.
But the hard part is that I will say that you can learn only so much in school, and everything that I know and Suad knows is from working.
Totally.
And so even if you did create a product that allows you to jump over that step, it doesn't mean that you actually are ahead. You just now you're in a place where you still need experts who know what they're doing in order to, keep it sustained.
Yeah.
Right.
And so do you have any advice for someone that maybe they're in college, maybe they're older, that wants to get started online but doesn't really know what resources that they have, kind of what do you start with, that kind of.
Well, we get a lot of inquiries like that every day, and that's also just a part of our service. We can consult with you and try to iron out your idea, let you know what we think you need and what we think the steps are that you should take in the process of figuring out what you want your brand to even be about. We can completely help you with that in the very, very early, like, incubative stages. That is a part of our service that we offer, because we know how ideas are created. We know that we all have ideas every day, so we understand that they need to be cultivated and cared for and nurtured throughout the process.
And if you think about it, specialization is something that built a modern society. So if you have the idea and you're able to communicate it to other people who are specialists in their field, then it doesn't matter that you don't have the experience.
Yeah.
But what is important is that you're clear on your ideas, and you're also able to take in the feedback from people like us, so that you can actually collaborate and make your ideas into real, tangible objects.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned before we started that you're the expert, so you can that you're there to actually help someone in that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Deb Kelly on Facebook asked, so it's a little bit marketing, a little bit of distribution. So is social media the best marketing strategy, or shopping yourself out to boutiques or the e-commerce site alone?
I think social media has really taken over a lot of marketing. I mean, Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is so huge, and everybody is shopping now on Instagram. I would do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think you need both. Still, you can't just do one or the other.
Yeah, I think that right now it seems like social media is media, but it's actually just one avenue of media. There's still print. There's still and shopping to boutiques actually isn't part of media. That's either a part of your business or it's not. If you're a direct to consumer brand only, then you're not gonna do trade shows or market or find a showroom. There's no need to do that. And then you do want to figure out which avenues of media you do want to advertise on or participate in. There's still like commercials for Calvin Klein perfume. That's also media. And it is effective. It's just very expensive. So the most accessible media is social media.
Because it's pretty free. All you need to do is you need a content designer to design your content and load it and post it and get in the Instagram game, because that's it's so strategic now, your followers and your hits and your follower to following ratio and all of that stuff, which is just a constant learning, and it's somebody's job in a corporation to design the content for your social media every single day.
Yeah.
So based on your business and what your brand is about and who you want to target, you should cater your marketing plan, but do a little of each.
Everything.
Yeah, you have to cover it because it's marketing. If nobody knows about your brand,
and I do think again, it's like it is
it.
so easy to start with social media because it's so accessible. Yes, there are in corporations people who, produce entire commercial productions, but that's not to say that you can't take your lookbook shots and take the the things that didn't make the selection for print, and post it every day, and
use everything you've got, your printed shots, use them for Facebook and Instagram, and as well as your lookbook. Like, you can just utilize your resources to the best that you can.
And I mean, for as little as $5 a day, you can run Facebook targeted ads, and they do seem. The hard part is the conversion. Likes don't equal
sales.
Buys. Yeah,
they don't. Your followers don't equal who's going to buy your product.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of
smoke and mirrors a little bit, but it's still the way, and it's what everybody's doing right now.
Yeah, and branding is important across social media and any platform.
Branding is really important. We believe that if you've got your branding, your design and development, and your production management all rolling at the same time and functioning well, it's just a recipe for success. Your brand identity and who you are is just so important, because the clothing and the apparel that we create, there won't be any question whether it's on brand or off brand if we have a strong identity. It's like being a person. It's like your identity of who you are. So designing and developing will come much more organically or seamless if we have a really clear understanding of what the brand is, who you are, what you're about, who your customer is. And the customer base is really important too, because as long as we know who the customer is, I feel like we can design anything for anyone. We need to know who the customer is and really get into their mindset and understand what they want.
And at the same time, you have to have your product. You have to be focused on that product. And so that is why it's the three big buckets are equally important.
Yeah. So Black Capital One from Instagram asked, should I get a patent or trademark before I start, before allowing a manufacturer to produce? So it's kind of getting into NDAs a little bit.
Okay, so patenting apparel designs is almost impossible.
Is it the design or is it the name? I thought it was the
brand
name.
Okay, for your name for sure.
Yes, for your name, definitely. You should definitely do that. You don't want to be midway in your product development and going to production and you find out from your trademark lawyer that your name cannot be used. You've got your logo created, your labels, your hang tags, everything has your logo and your name on it by that point. So you want to just nip that in the bud, maybe as we're doing the branding process, or maybe as we begin the process with you. It takes like 6 months to trademark your name and to go through all that I'll go through the legal process for that.
But it is, so if you start the trademark process before you've actually before you've developed any products, I should say, you have to do an intent to use, which then you have to refile as really using. So you don't want to get too ahead unless you really don't have, unless you're okay with that. If you want to start and in the gestation period and do a lot behind the scenes before you're even creating stuff, then go for it, because you have a good name and you want to make sure it's there. Same with buying your domain. But you're going to have to do it again, so that just keep that in mind.
Right. People come to us, and once we begin the process on whatever level, if they're really in the beginning, we'll recommend a trademark lawyer so they can go run that process, keep us posted, let us know what's going on with it, and once it's secure, or even before it's secure, we'll tell them to buy their domains, get your website domain, get your Instagram, Facebook, nail all of that stuff, and do all the iterations and versions of it, and buy what you need to buy, so that when you're ready to launch, all of your sites are set and all you have to do is load your content.
But it would be really wise to make sure that you can trademark the brand name before you create your labels and your hang tags.
Totally. That's such a big process, and it's so much work that you want to.
And I've definitely seen cease and desist come through after a brand has been in production for 3 or 4 seasons. or you've come to find later that the trademark has been taken, so you have to change your name, and you're essentially changing your brand identity. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It really isn't. But if you can avoid it, you might as well.
Yeah.
And you talked a little bit. You started talking about how it's very hard to patent apparel design, and that's a question that a lot of people ask a lot.
Yeah.
Is the patent, and how does that work with apparel?
Yeah, so patenting is different than trademarking. So trademarking your brand you can do, but a patent is basically, right now there's a lot of conversation about it actually. In the fashion world, there's not a lot of protection for design. You have to essentially prove that nothing else has existed like it, and you have to get so specific that somebody could do a small tweak to the design, and you're no longer protected. So,
and I think it. If you're going to patent it, it has to be something that is a really big statement or some kind of change to the construction. G-Star jeans, those jeans are patented. Those I believe they are. Don't quote me 100%. But those jeans with the twisted seams that come down to the front, that are coming from up here, their fit is so specific. If you try to knock off those jeans anywhere else, to me it would be a knockoff. I don't know what kind of situations they deal with, but I would imagine that their best-selling jean with the twisted seams, when that came out as a trend 10 years ago or whenever, was like, I bet people wanted to knock that off, but I don't know how they would.
And the thing is it's actually so easy to make one small adjustment, and then it's no longer legally protected. So think about it like, I think that Disney has the Mickey Mouse ears patented, but if you do one small thing where you like change
the size of the ear,
one smaller than the other, or one's not exactly 3 inches, whatever the scale is, now you can do it.
Yeah.
So I think what's more important is to believe in your ability to come up with new ideas, and to understand that at this point in the postmodern era, we're all kind of recreating iterations of other things that came before. So to just believe in your ability to continue creating, and not necessarily worry so much about protecting what's so specifically yours.
Right.
So Gracefully from Instagram asks, how much should I expect to pay for patterns and samples for basic pants? So this is a loaded question.
Totally.
Because
I'm like, whoa.
But I guess a good way to say is what do you have to take into account for when you're getting ready to do patterns and samples?
Well, you have to take a lot into account when you're creating patterns and samples. So when you're ready to create a pattern, you have your design sketch approved. You've got a design detail call-out page or a tech pack approved, and now you're ready you have your fabric sourced, you're getting all of your trims, you understand the fabric that you want to use, and you're getting into the phase where you need to create the blueprint for the garment so it can be cut and sewn. So that is, I forgot what the question was actually. Sorry.
It's okay. It's how much you expect to pay for pattern and samples. What could you expect?
Okay.
Well, for a pant.
Yeah.
Pattern prices vary based on the style, based on the complexity, based on how long it's going to take to make the pattern. And then your sample is the cost is the same. I think you could
I try to say about $200 per pattern, more or less. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It really depends. 5-pocket jeans, but again, so the first iteration of your sample almost inevitably is not going to fit. Even if you went so far as taking a really amazing pair of vintage Lee jeans and you're like, this fits perfectly. The minute you change your fabric, and the minute if the human hand touches it again, there's no way to create it exactly the same. So you're going to need to do about 2 to 3 pattern adjustments. So your first pattern might cost you about $200, and then every time you adjust it, another $50 to $150, I'd say.
Yeah, the price can vary. I think, like $2 to $450, I would say, something in that range. It could be, unless it's like something really complex. But every time there's a change based on the fitting, which there will be, there's a pattern correction. Yeah. So your first sample is never going to be perfect ever, and if it is, it's like some kind of a miracle.
Yeah, it's I've never seen it.
So Yes, so you pay for the pattern correction,
Uh-huh.
the initial pattern, and all of the subsequent samples that are coming in afterwards.
So the one thing is, it's kind of difficult to speak in general terms. When we start to even give ballpark pricing, it's after we at least have, if you don't have a sketch, then all we can do is quote you for us creating the sketches. And then once you've done that, then we can kind of quote based on your target retail price, whether or not you've actually, your retail price is realistic. And then we can kind of work backwards and give you a ballpark price range.
But the price range will come more into focus and be more clear after the first sample is made. I mean, the factory is not going to be able to give you a full price of your sample or your production until the first sample comes back, because they need to understand the cutting and sewing and the labor and the time and the intensity that they need to dedicate to making each one of your garments. So a factory might be able to give you an estimate at the time that we can show them a sketch and a tech pack, and we can say, here's our work, we can give you the pattern, and they can quote an estimate. But that number is, and I ask them all the time, and it's almost not fair to them to hold them to their price that they give you before they make a sample, because when they come back to you and say, actually this seam was really intricate, and this is how you want it sewn, and some things cannot be clear on the tech pack or the sketch until we're actually sitting down and somebody's making the garment. It's just something to keep in mind.
And I think there's a second part that wasn't asked but is kind of looming in the background here, is that you have your development budget, and then you have your production budget, and we can say to you, yep, more or less, a pattern is going to cost you somewhere between $200 and $500. Okay, if you have 12 styles you're going to do, you can do the math. And knowing what you're trying to do, we already have factories in mind, and we kind of know their pricing. But what Suad said is that, if you want a 5-thread overlock or you want a French hem, it's different construction and it's different amount of time spent. Or if, your pair of pants have a gusset in the inseam and there's like 5 different bundles that they have to undo to sew them, that all comes into play later. So there's the development ballpark that we can quote you on once we kind of have an idea as to what it is you're trying to achieve. And then there's the production pricing that comes after.
Okay. I think when you guys were talking about it, I just kept on thinking about how on HGTV shows, whenever they do renovations, and they're like, this is the budget and this is how much it's going to cost. It's going to run you right up to your budget. And they're like, oh, we're going to go $15,000 over.
Well, and that's the thing, is we always do say, like, and it's transparent, but if we look, let's say we've already gone through the sketch phase and we have the line plan determined, and we know that you want this shirt to be made out of this and the pants to be made out of that fabric and all of that. We give you a ballpark, and then we always add to it, because you never know what's going to happen. Just like those shows, there's like, they start to break the wall out and they find that there's a pipe in it, right? There's something to that effect going on in every process of making things happen.
It's like a wedding budget. So it's going to be 10,000 over or 15,000 over your budget anyway. It's similar, because you never know until you begin the process.
So I got noted that there's some buffering issues on YouTube. So if you are able to actually see this message right now, we're also on Facebook at facebook.com/makersrow, or on our Instagram at makersrow. So next question. Patrick from via text asked, can you help with market research to validate that there's enough demand?
That's a good question, and we get that question not often, but sometimes. We're not a market research or a marketing company, so we're not going to. We can speak to you and consult with you about the industry and what our knowledge is, and where we come from in terms of what your product is and what you're looking to create and the hole you're looking to fill. Because a lot of people come to us with their ideas and they say, we've never seen product like this, and this is the hole we want to fill. We have a customer base, we have investors, we have all these people that are really interested in this and that want to do it, and we're like, okay, great, cool, like we'll do a little research on it too and see, like, okay, they're right, we actually don't see that product in the market.
And I mean, once you're working with a lot of brands, like when activewear was kind of first hitting the market the way it is now, I had 3 or 4 people come to me every day being like, I want to start an athletic wear brand. So you do have a gauge what the market is doing just from working in the industry.
Yeah, we're on the pulse of stuff just by nature. So like we know what's trending, we know what the new brands are that are coming out.
Yeah.
It's just in our daily knowledge. But in terms of like pure market research or a marketing function, we're not that.
Yeah. Do you find that before even something starts like activewear, that people for some reason all kind of go at it at the same time?
Yeah. I mean,
there's money to be made. I think that's a big driver of it for large companies.
Well, and then people are always trying to, like, the ideal situation in business would be to disrupt the market in some way, right? People always try to do that. But I just read an article again on the business of fashion the other day that said sometimes there's a white space for a reason. Sometimes somebody came to me recently wanting to do something to a baby stroller, and once we kind of looked into it, it was like, there's a reason that this isn't happening.
We get that. I get that a lot too. Just questions like, somebody would want something sewn a certain way or to develop a certain kind of fabric, and we will begin the conversation, and then we might start developing it, and then we will all be in agreement that there's a reason why this doesn't exist, and there's a reason why you don't sew it like this, and there's a reason why, because it doesn't function. It's not going to last. It's not going to be a viable product.
But that's not to say that there's not room for innovation. And a lot of times, your everyday person doesn't have the funds or the technical understanding to develop, like when nylon came out. I mean, that's like, that you got to be a scientist.
Yeah.
But then once they create something new, then it's up to us to come up with cool new ideas of how to use it. And then you can kind of fill in the gaps. But for sure, it's probably better if you really want to do that kind of research to hire a firm to do that, and then use us in conjunction to helping you actually create the product.
Yeah, and really you should probably get that research done before they even start thinking about production or anything.
That would be ideal. That would be really kind of wise for brands or for people that want to start brands to have their market research and to have their ideas like that kind of thought through and landed a bit, so then that we can jump in and create the product and know what you're about and know what the research that you've done. But
there is also a lot of business where people just go with their gut, and there's nothing wrong with that. And just because there are already mom jeans out there doesn't mean that yours aren't going to be better. So it's kind of a give and take.
Yeah.
So we are a brand-facing, Makerstar is a brand-facing company and a factory-facing company.
Yes.
So a lot of factories come to us and say, some brands either aren't educated or they have these kind of lofty expectations as far as a price, like I could do it for $5,000 or I can get this many pieces done here. So kind of what's your advice for someone going into it, figuring out whether or not whether their expectations are realistic or not, and kind of are there resources for them to figure that out? And you kind of mentioned you could change this or change that to fit whatever budget they may have.
I think expectations are really important for clients that are inquiring with us for services, and we have to manage their expectations as well. So if they're expecting something to happen in a certain amount of time, or expecting something the process to go according to what they were thinking, it's just something that we have to manage as well.
I honestly think that's one of the main reasons that we exist. We have the skill and we understand how it works, and that in of itself is very important. But if you don't have experience in the industry, there's no way you're going to know how long it takes. A lot of people think that they can do something in a month and a half. When I'm like, actually, I do that, we usually do 12 weeks for that.
Yeah.
And people are like, wow. And then you think about it, and this thing is an item that really should launch in spring, and because we need 12 weeks, now you're ahead.
Exactly.
So it really depends on the brand's background and what they understand. But I think that factories really appreciate working with people like us, because That's what I don't like the word middleman. We're an intermediary. We are in between. We help understand your needs and what you want, and we also understand the realities of what the factory can do. And because of that, we can create a synthesis and actually make it realistic.
Yeah.
And products have to be realistic.
And the communication is key throughout that whole process.
Yeah, and so certain things like, I mean, I got a design once where there was a cutout, and you know, the technical designer and the pattern maker was like, well, how's that going to stay in place unless we put, you know, wire or something? We have to have something here to hold that in place. Like, it's so much different when you have a drawing or an idea in your head, you know. You know, we could put a spaghetti strap to hold that cutout in place, and they're like, but I don't want that, you know. So, okay, well, what can we do to make this work?
So you guys obviously work with a lot of factories and have kind of the people that you go back to a lot. But when you, let's say you're looking for a new factory, or you're someone, or you're working with someone kind of new, what do you look for in a factory or a production partner?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
That's a good question because factory relationships are so important, and it's such a relationship-based rapport that we have with our factories. And we do have the ones we trust and the ones we love going back to time and time again. And when we're looking at a new factory or trying a new factory, I mean, we'll go visit, we'll talk to them about what type of products they make, what brands they work with, what